Welcome, everyone. I'm Jill Caniglio-Kirk, and this is my co-host, Joe Shambaum. Thanks for joining this episode of The Talent Revolution, Tales from the Trenches. Today's topic is networking, and I'd like you to really take a step back today and reflect on your network. And one analogy I use is really thinking of my network like a toolbox. And all of you might be saying, what would you know about a toolbox? Because admittedly am not the most handy person. But ultimately, if I think about having a toolbox, there's go-to tools that you have, right? You have your screwdriver, and for me, I don't even know the difference between the pointy one and the flat one, right? But in essence, my favorite one is the one where the pointy head and the flat head, Phillips, and whatever the other one is, are exchangeable, right? Um, so if I look at really the analogy of looking at a toolbox and my network, there are people and resources that are like my screwdriver that's interchangeable, right? Things I might readily go to every day is probably the most frequent things I use. There are things that might help me in a pinch. I have a quick question. I want to bounce an idea off somebody. And then on the other hand, there might be people that are more like a table saw, right? How often would you use your table saw? You really probably don't
Yeah.
need that unless you're really doing something big and major and doing some planning, right? And there are people that you might rely on in your network when you really are doing something big or transformational. That would be something like your table spa, right? I don't know how you feel about that, Joe, but when I look at building out my network, I think about what do I have in my toolbox? What do I need in my toolbox to be resourceful and be a better professional? And how do I expand that? But I'd love to hear your take on it.
Hi everyone, it's Joe and Jill. I love the analogy. I think the toolbox is perfect for networking and for your circle of people that you're really interacting with on daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever the right basis is. And there's different screwdrivers and specialty tools and wrenches and pliers and what everyone has to think of. And even myself,
Who's your
just
hammer, Joe? I want to know
well,
who's your hammer man
it
or woman.
depends, though. So I hate saying it depends. It really does, because what are we talking about? And that's what I wanted to get to is think about it. Your network is a variety of different things. Everyone's like, hey, I've got a person for that, right? And whether it's a computer issue, whether it's a car, a home improvement, and a variety of different things, those are all your tools, right? That's the cool part of them. And then, what do we use those tools sometimes? And what everyone's got to remember is sometimes you got to take those tools out and dust them off and clean them. Meaning talk to people, reach out to them, do different pieces. And I'm trying to use your analogy here for everyone to see, and I love it. But everyone has to think of that, right? And then what I also was thinking is, Jill, then how do you add new tools to your toolbox, right? What do you do? Because maybe there is that specialty tool, or I need another screwdriver. How do I add? Because sometimes you do need two flatheads, just so you know, or Phillips, or if you're in Canada, the Robinson, the square heads, those are even better. Um, because the Robinsons, there's four different kinds. There's black, red, yellow, and green. But you got to have all these different tools. So how do you add new tools, which is the whole analogy for our networking piece? But what do you do? How would you go about adding new tools to your toolbox?
Yeah, for me, I think a lot of it starts with the why, right? So, why is there an advantage to me building out my network and what's in it for me? I think we should take a step back and really talk about what benefits come from building a strong network. Perhaps it's getting guidance, right, about something I don't know a lot about. I have a lot of friends who are actually legal experts. They have practiced law before they went into
Yeah.
HR. So, while it's something that I obviously deal with day in and day out, if I really feel like I'm not sure of something, right? There's a person in my toolbox that they can identify with me. They can see both the HR side of things, and then they can also see the legal side of things and bring a perspective that maybe I haven't thought of, right? As an example. So I think there's so many whys. That's one for me is practicality, right? I need a little
Yep.
advice. Another why might be I'm stuck, right? I just feel like stuck. And I like having a person I can bounce ideas off or maybe get some energy from, right?
Well, even stuck, but it's also what are like the ideas and concepts, right? So we're good at what we do, and everybody is, and I'm sure everyone is listening is good at what they do. but there's other perspectives, other ideas, things that we haven't thought of, new technologies, and that's part of having a network of here's what I'm doing. Does it make sense? Could I be doing it better? Could I be doing it differently? What do you do? And then that's providing that other perspective, right? That's part of the
Right.
why.
And for me, it is part of what keeps me motivated. And I know a lot of people are saying, wait a minute, I hate networking, right? I would rather go to the dentist and have them use their drill on me, keeping with the tool analogy, than actually
Nice,
like
nice one.
willingly participate in networking. And, I'm sure there are people out there like that, Joe, but I think if people really take a step back and invest some time in it, they will realize that there's a lot of ROI there for them and that they'll get more comfortable with it and just realize how beneficial it is to them. So what
Well,
I would like to do, if you're willing, is really kind of specifically start with, I think would be the comfort zone for most people out there in our
yeah,
world of talent acquisition and for HR, to really look at that peer network, right?
that's right.
And, I feel like when we're around people that think like us, have similar experiences to us, it's always more comfortable. It's always an easier world to navigate building out that network,
Well, yeah,
right?
that's your inner circle, right? Your circle of trust and your people, right? There's your peer network. I would even say that person up, right? So if you're in a company, you have your network internally and you have your network externally as well. And the people in different functions and areas that you're going to go to, and then other industries to be able to give you that peer networking. And you want to call, you want to message. I mean, there's so many different ways to stay in touch nowadays. You don't have to go join an association and go to a meeting and sit there. You can do this all through your phone nowadays, or going online. And LinkedIn is a huge piece for that networking of just sending a message and seeing how you're doing, right? I actually did that even this morning to somebody that I connected with months ago and just said, "Hey, how's it going?" And let's stay in touch. And he responded, and it's kind of that emotional connection of, "Hey, that's great. We're there. We're still available." And it literally took minutes, right?
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point in that I think networking is mastered in minutes, right?
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is when you have 5 minutes, instead of playing a game on your phone and you're at the car wash, right? Maybe open LinkedIn, check in with somebody, comment on someone's article, right? This is kind of how it starts. It starts really with small actions and habits, and it can start with something as simple as taking 5 minutes, right, to invest in it
Hmm.
and setting some goals. So for those of you who feel a little stuck or unsure of how to approach it, I would say dabble in that world. Take 5 minutes at a time when you have, time on your hands, you're sitting waiting for something, or in the line at the grocery store, perhaps, right? I think there's a lot of easy strategies that if you embrace them, you'll see that small acts will kind of lead to actually potential relationships that you could develop with people and nurture with people. It doesn't really take a lot of time.
No, it doesn't. And to our point to start this was the peer networking and folks that you're in your world, it just as well as they do. So stay in that side of it. Take those 5, 10 minutes, whatever it is a week, and then you can continue to grow that before you go outside your circle, right? You want to get
Right.
comfortable doing it. It takes time. Baby steps, everybody. You're not going to conquer the world here, but you're going to start commenting, messaging, joining different. I say LinkedIn is the best way. It's a professional networking site, and I'm not endorsed by LinkedIn by any means. But and if you're out there, connect with me. I'm happy to do that as well. And it starts that way, right? And it's whether it's HR, TA, we're talking about tech, we're talking about cars, talking about the weather, right? That's part of networking, to get someone else in your repertoire that's there available when you need them. And it's a give and take piece. And for a while you've got to give, and that's part of it. And I know we'll get to that part here talking about networking, but you can't just always accept to receive it, right? And it's a give and take relationship. It's just like any other relationship. You got to
Yeah,
give
I
and
would just
take.
like that emotional bank account is a good
Yes.
analogy for that as well, because you have to kind of make deposits before you can make withdrawals, right? You have to have a
Absolutely.
balance, and you just really don't know when you're gonna maybe want to make that withdrawal. So like I said, I think you're right, Joe. You really have to kind of be have an expectation to kind of be on the giving side and the curious side from the get-go, and maybe put some strategy behind it. To your point of trying to expand your network and people you're not comfortable with, perhaps you're in a position where you're uncomfortable just walking into that without a script. There's nothing wrong with taking a little time, even leveraging our friend AI to kind of help you build a couple, talking points that you can approach and take into a conversation when you reach out to someone you want to network with.
Now think about it, everyone. So we're on HR and TA. We're very similar in aspects, but sometimes we get so specialized in it, but we have so many other rings within those groups. So you might be a talent management professional, but the baby step out of your little comfort zone, maybe it's payroll, maybe it's benefits, maybe it is talent acquisition, maybe it's immigration, right? There's a lot of different things, even within our own world, which will then get you a little bit out of the next outer ring instead of jumping into, maybe it's IT or purchasing or some of these other functional areas within the organization. But if you expand that ring a little bit, it'll keep on growing, because then we all get interconnected inside of that. And, that's just one little baby step that everybody could take without, getting too nervous.
You know what, Joe? One thing that just struck me that I've seen other people masterfully do that I have stole with pride. That's one of my Jillisms. Steal with pride. When you see a great idea, take it, run with it, right? Use it. Which is taking into every conversation. It could either be with someone you know or don't know. Going through that conversation, sharing a little bit about yourself, what you're interested in, what you're exploring, and then asking that person, is there anyone inside of your network that you think I would benefit from meeting who has some common interest to me? I'm really trying to grow my network. And asking that other person, while you have them captive audience, to really say, can you give me 2 or 3 more people that you think would benefit from meeting me, or I would benefit from meeting them? And I have found that once I put that into practice, it was really, really effective for me. And it led me to meeting all kinds of other people. So it's almost like you have to plant that little seed, right? And that's a very easy way to kind of get a little bit more mileage out of each conversation that I just thought I'd share as a tip.
No, it's a great idea. I mean, and that's where you're asking without, it's a easy intro. It gets you that warm conversation, whether it's a LinkedIn request or a connection or wherever you go, asking for that. That's a huge piece. And it should be simple in that basic conversation that you're having with that person. And then even in those conversations, everyone, you don't have to go super personal, right? You're not there and going to necessarily have to go for dinner every week with this person and they're going to be your best friend. They're an acquaintance, they're a professional colleague, and you're getting to know them. And some of that is opening up and being a little bit vulnerable, but this isn't sharing all of your secrets. This isn't going into family history and drama that's going on, right? You keep it professional. You go where you want to go with it, but you have a good conversation. You have a flow. Talk about something that is relatable to be able to get the conversation going, and that's how networking is. And then whatever the right time period is, you follow back up, and that's where keeping those emotional credits and different things into the bank, you got to also keep all those balls in the air, right? You can't let it go. Ideally, you don't want to let it go for years before you go back to that person, right? You want to do that, whatever the right cadence is. There's no set time, people. That's the other thing. So
yeah, actually, as you were talking about that, Joe, I had a reflection of a meeting I had not very long ago with someone. And I think it's a good illustration to share right now, if it's okay with you, which is, the person requested a meeting with me, wanted to network, wanted to chat. I went into the conversation, eager to meet them. They talked all about what they're doing, what they're looking for, what they wanted. And at no time did they really make an effort to get to know me or even really give me the time to have a 2-way dialogue. And to me, that really left me feeling used a bit, right? Wait a minute, I thought this was an opportunity for both of us, right? To kind of share and have equal participation. So it just kind of came to me. And as I often do, I thought that was a good share for the rest of the team. Be cognizant of this being an equal. No matter who initiated the conversation, it should really be an equal discussion. And if you need to, you should be leading the other person into, tell me about you. What are you experiencing right now? Are there any dilemmas or troubles, whatever it is, but like probe, right? And
Yeah.
I just felt like I left this meeting feeling like I was never really welcome to given that opportunity. Not that I'm a soft-spoken person, but it just, left me feeling a bit odd and like a little like not appreciated. And I think it's just a good thing for people to be cognizant of as they enter conversations like that. Be careful about having that balance, and it's a two-way street. So,
That's all right. And be cognizant of the time and appreciate the person's time. The other thing I was thinking of is taking notes, right? Because when you follow up, I mean, that's a personal touch of, hey, if they mention something, maybe it's about kids or a situation with their work or
maybe they
something
like to
else.
golf, right?
Maybe like
Or
the golf or,
or they're a
you know,
triathlete or something like that.
there's
Most
a
people
little
I know
bits
are
of
not, but
little bits of those timbits that come through the conversation, and it just gives that personal touch and that remember that, oh, hey, they do remember me, they do remember these things. It's a huge thing, and obviously, it's part of your information about that person, and that gives you reminders too, because you've got so much stuff going through your mind. It's, when did I talk to them, what was that piece? So keep an extra, if it depends, everyone's different. Again, we have maybe a special networking book, and you put the notes in there and you have the dated in the different pieces, so you can go back to that conversation, and maybe there was action items that you need to do to write off. Again, it might be digital, it might be old school written down, every different way that someone can do that. But I think those are net extra personal touches that just keeps building that relationship a little bit further.
yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think also there's probably people out there that have mastered that have a lot of great ideas to share. So we would love to hear
Oh,
from our
yes.
listeners. And, part of this is really building a community of collaboration. So please, if you found something that works really well, we'd love to hear about it and love to share it with the rest of our community.
Yes, please comment and have the dialogue inside of the posting here, and maybe there'll be a future conversation that, and if there's different topics you want to add into that, we can definitely have future sessions to be able to go through those topics. So please, we love the dialogue, and we'll respond in a timely fashion as well. So really appreciate it. Great idea, Joe.
So where do we go next here? I think really, we've covered well, like how do you build that peer network? How do you kind of go outside of your comfort zone of the people you already know? But I think another really important aspect is how do you build a different level of connection, right? How do
Yes.
you kind of really focus on, I want to connect with other business leaders and maybe they're not HR leaders, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's a very important dimension for every professional to like nurture and think about. And this one's a little bit scarier, especially for all of you people that really don't like networking, right? So
And
how
it's
do you
different for
crack
every,
that? How do you
well,
crack the code?
it's different for every person and every role as well. I'm going to be honest, it's maybe a little bit easier for someone like myself in recruitment, where I'm having those conversations and I might have recruited them, or in different worlds of things, right? And whether if I've been doing it at that corporate or different roles. So for myself, it's reaching out and having that conversation, and I'll do it myself into those things. Or if I'm talking to someone that I do know, again, it's back to your other point. Is there someone else? I'm looking for someone to talk in this world of things, whether it's a technology, a process, a tool, a concept, and they might know somebody. For somebody that doesn't have that, I would also don't go so far, right? Don't go so far so fast, meaning don't say, I want to go talk to the CEO of XYZ company right away, right? Go to the next level. If you're an individual contributor, go to a manager level or a senior manager, maybe director, and then you're talking to those folks, and then you can go up into the different levels. So just be mindful of that, because the context and the information changes. I mean, they're great industry professionals, but we got to manage everyone's time, and it's scary to jump that those levels very quickly, right? But you could be doing that in conversations, and maybe there's networking groups. Say I'm using LinkedIn a lot on reference because it's an easy networking piece, because everyone's potentially going to comment. So maybe follow those people that you're looking for into that world of things, into that industry or technology or area that you want to talk about, and then see where they're commenting, and then you can be able to get into the conversations that way. And it's an easier piece when you're already got that soft lay up into that conversation. Hopefully that makes
Right.
sense for everyone.
Yeah, and a few other things that I would just say are food for thought for our audience would be, perhaps you've just recently gotten your coaching certification and there are coaching hours you need to kind of put in and, kind of
Mhm.
go through those type of process. I think if you have the ambition and are looking to connect with a leader, you might say, hey, I can offer you free coaching. Or, do you have a successor in mind in your organization that would benefit from coaching? Perhaps, that's a way I can build a relationship with you and build some goodwill and then accomplish something to hone my own skills. And, again, it's making a big deposit in that emotional bank account. So it's kind of the win-win. Then you start building that trust, right? And, that's just another example of perhaps a way you can think about how do you connect with a business leader. Maybe there's something you can offer them in the way of advice, something you're an expert at as a courtesy and just as a, goodwill gesture that helps that journey along. And then
And
I
in
would
the,
say,
yep, go ahead.
one
Sorry.
last one I came up with because it's the season. It's intern season, right? So I
Yeah.
have connected with some very high level people who have had young adult children looking for opportunities and looking for internships, right? So I see that they maybe post that and I say, oh, I happen to know someone in recruiting at this corporation who handles their interns, and I saw your posting. And trust me, a little small gesture like that with an executive in a key company where you took the time to say,
Huge.
tip them off and say, hey, and I noticed you're connected to this executive inside that company, right? Those little things could really lead to a very, very valued long-term relationship. And I would just say, I've done it, I've experienced it, and it's easy, right? It starts with making those offers. So
So two things there. First of all, everyone listening, that was Jill talking about that and helping an intern, not from the TA and a recruiting side. Just to remember everyone, that was an HR person because they wanted to go after a conversation for a different reason, not to recruit them or to that side of it. So it works in both ways there to help everyone. So I just wanted to
right.
point that out. So it's not always the
Joe's
recruiting
phone's going to
side.
be ringing off the hook. His email
Hey,
box is going to be filling up.
but we
But yeah,
we
like I
definitely
said,
do that side.
it's an
Um,
easy example of I saw someone post it and I gave
yeah.
them a tip and it showed them that I know who they are, right? I want to try to help them. And I had this goodwill gesture. I wasn't offering them a job in my company, right? I was
Right.
kind of being a bridge. I think if you can be a bridge to other people, that's a beautiful thing and it does pay dividends.
My second part is what you just said is offering to help people and asking for help. Usually people are willing to help somebody, whether it's a quick message or a connection or a conversation. If you're asking for help, now again, back to our other side of it is you can't always, ask and never give, but usually starting off trying to network with somebody brand new is offering to help or asking for help. And it's a great way to be able to ease the conversation to be able to get in and keep it rolling.
You know what, Joe? One small thing about asking for help. I think for a lot of people it's really difficult. And what I would just caution people to say is if you have trouble asking for help and you haven't put thought into how that person can help you, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot,
Yeah.
right? You have to find the courage and try to articulate as distinctly as possible how they can help you. And it might start as being as simple as, can you make any introductions to me, for me,
Mhm.
to other people like you? It could be, do you know a recruiter in this space who you trust, respect, and admire, right? But I would just say, no matter how uncomfortable are with asking, make sure you are thoughtful about having a specific ask. Because if you're general and say, I don't know, or really anything, you're never going to get something back, right?
100%. Yeah, you've got to have a reason, the action of what, right? Because you're asking for that. That's 100% correct, Jill. That makes so sense. And then it's thoughtful and it's meaningful and it's specific, and they're able to then action upon it without trying to, they don't know exactly what you're thinking. So, take a little few minutes to prepare that conversation. Ask AI, ask a friend, another way to network on it. But it's being thoughtful and mindful to be able to drive through that 100%. So it kind of goes to that networking game plan and that it's part of the toolbox, right? Is the game plan, right? If you're going to go start a project, you're going to grab these different screwdrivers and wrenches and pliers and saws, etc. It's the same thing with networking. What's the plan? What are you going to go after? How do you want to get there? And maybe sometimes it's actually just getting to the drawing board. What is that, right? So you want to draw it up, literally take a pen and paper, or do it on the computer, or and start with your personal friend, right, on that, or start with AI. What should I do? How could I go after it? And a lot of that is that writer's block in getting through the first step, and then it'll ducktail into this huge tumbleweed of different ideas, and that's what you need to do. But it all starts with planning.
Yeah, and I think, Joe, that's really wise advice, and everyone really should plan. But I would challenge that by saying, don't be so structured in your plan that you don't have plan A, B, and C, because while you think the first plan you develop might be the most effective, until you really test them with people, you really wouldn't know.
No.
So I'll just say that's something I force myself to do. And, I thought I was having these great network meetings, and I was like, well, I just wonder if I flipped it this way or I did something different, what it would lead to. So I think planning is essential, and experimentation is also part of that process, right? Figure out what fits you best, depending on what your personality is. Try a few different things in a safe space, and then go from there. And like anything, you're going to have to tweak it. And, perhaps, maybe it's a blend of plan A, B, and C, right?
It could being be anything, agile, right?
Yeah, you have to be agile. That's
agile.
Exactly the word. That's the word.
And as I call it, especially like recruiting, you're Sherlock Holmes. You're going down a path, and you got to follow the clues and follow the evidence of where it goes. Same thing with networking. It's going to lead you in many directions. They're all right, especially with networking. There's nothing wrong. Right. And there's good conversations. I'm going to say maybe not as useful because you're giving versus receiving in those times. And for example, right now, and I'm giving a lot more right now. There's a lot of folks that are looking for roles, that are trying to, find their next career because of the situation. And I'm giving those things out to folks. I'm helping, I'm having conversations on whether it's just a quick on LinkedIn or text message or a longer conversation. And that's good, because that makes me feel good trying to help folks and be able to do those things. But am I getting as much back into those things at the moment? No, and that's okay, because eventually I might need that. But that's part of networking, and that's part of the whole ebbs and flows of how all this works. But I have a game plan of how to do that.
Yeah, you have a game plan. And the other thing is, it's impossible to predict how those things come full circle and how they really do end up leading you down the right path.
Right. This, Jill, right? You're a little story of us. So.
Right. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, I'll share a little story about networking. And it's actually how Joe and I met. And that's why I think this topic is really cool, that here you and I are, and we met through a cold introduction, right? Ultimately, I was in a career transition a few years back. Joe's name was thrown out to me as someone I would benefit by connecting with. In fact, I think at the time, Joe, you were working at Ford, and they had an opportunity I was interested in. So a person I know said, hey, I know Joe. I'll put you in touch with Joe. And I was blown away how quickly I heard back from Joe. I got follow-up, right? And the conversation with Joe really led to, number one, me figuring out, after going through a series of discussions about the role, that the role really wasn't the right fit for me. But secondly, about really connecting with more people that Joe knew that he thought I would like. And he didn't even remember this. As he and I talked about this episode, I was like, Joe, I really want to share the story about how you and I met. He's like, how did we meet? So I kind of rang the light bulb went off, and we had that conversation. But one thing I told Joe is, you're the person who taught me by sharing. Here's a few more people I think you would benefit from meeting. And Joe was generous with his time, as he always is, but most of all, really someone I respected, because he got to know me, he listened, and he wanted to help me. And by simply giving me a few names, he probably gave me maybe 15, 30 minutes of his time. That really snowballed into meeting several other people that were really meaningful connections that I still maintain today. So I think it's a simple illustration of someone made that introduction for me. I had the call with Joe. It didn't, things didn't end up the way I had hoped. Of course, I hoped it landed this job I thought I wanted, right? But it was still a wonderful, wonderful journey and a meaningful relationship that, we are still, kind of nurturing today and benefiting from. So,
Absolutely. And that's turned 2 or so years later, 2.5, into helping Jill find someone for her company where she was at and giving some references into that and staying connected to, the present day where, spitballing on how to do this podcast and what to do. And Jill's name came up again. And it's like, well, let's have the conversation. And here we are. So it's, that's a 4 year, 5 years ago when we really
right.
started this. So you can see, and we didn't talk every day, we didn't talk every week. It was every so often, and that's how it works, right? And that's true networking and building a relationship over time. To again, not everyone's going to have a podcast together, but it's the whole point of, even if we didn't, it's the mutual respect and the conversations to be able to help each other and spitball into many different things. And love the story, and yeah, you help shake a little bit of the cobwebs off of the conversation. But I
And
remember
that's
you
because you
reaching out.
network with so many people and you help so many people without even thinking twice about it, right? You're a natural, right? And not everyone is. So the whole point of this conversation today is, how do we make people who aren't feeling comfortable or confident or natural at this, or believers that it really does lead to growth, professional growth and stimulation, you know, into people who are willing to kind of do something different and take a try and see what, kind of see what gains they can get through some of these strategies and some of these ideas.
And it's very difficult for folks. And yes, it comes natural to someone like myself. And I would say probably a lot of recruiters in essence, and TA professionals, and some HR folks too. I think some are a little bit more shy into that, and across the scope, right? There's a whole spectrum. But
Right.
in my opinion, for everyone here, start small, like we said, right? Get into those groups, and LinkedIn is the best way, in my opinion, because there's industry pieces, and start those little comments and different things. And, if anyone's listening, please just shoot me a message on LinkedIn, connect with me, and I'll give you some of those tips as well. But, it starts slow, and it'll snowball, and
Right.
it can be fun, right? Don't think it's daunting. Don't think it's a task. You can make a little challenge in a sense out of yourself doing it, but you've got to push yourselves, right? And I push myself at times, because sometimes you get busy, and that's the other thing, is scheduling
Yeah.
it in there and remembering to do that.
Right.
And because you don't want to be 6 months down the road and going, oh, I don't have anybody to contact because I have this problem. You want to be able to keep those
Yeah.
things going. And problems could be a work problem, hey, listen, I need a car person. Who should I go? Right.
Right.
And now
Right.
there's Facebook communities and all these things to be able to go to, and
Right.
Instagram and
Well,
X and whatever else. But
I think
those
what
are
you're
all part of your
talking
network,
about,
folks.
yeah, I think what you're talking about really kind of brings it back to the toolbox analogy, right? You
Hmm.
got to maintain your toolbox, right? You got to do an inventory, right? Do I have everything I
Yeah.
need? Right?
I
Is
love the
everything in
analogy.
working
It's
order?
perfect.
Right? Have I even tried to see if my, pressure gauge is still working or whatever, right? So I think, reaching out to your network, using them, following up with people, checking in, is a way that you can kind of nurture and continue that relationship. And like you said, Joe, for you and I, it was an easy example to say, yeah, we might have gone 6 months without talking, right?
Hmm.
But we've maintained a connection. We share articles with each other. We see each other as, people respect each other's opinion, right? And we didn't have to invest a lot of time to getting there. So I think for people who are non-believers, I would just tell them, I was a closet busy with my head down for 20 plus years in a career in one company where I didn't make a lot of time for this. And I've just gained so much by really having a different perspective and putting the time in. So trust me, I think if you do that, you'll see that your career takes different dimensions that you really never thought were possible.
And I think it'll also help people in their roles, their current roles. And I'm saying
Absolutely.
networking internally within your company. Don't stay in your zone and your team, right? Start breaching that out. And therefore, again, you don't have to be the person to know everybody in the company, but that's an easy way to start networking, right? Because you have that common connection there.
Mhm.
And then you can use that on the outside world as well to be able to build those networks and those invitations. And staying up on technology and tools and concepts is the easy way in my mind as well. I've done that many times of, hey, what's this new tool? And I just sent a new tool to a few friends today going, hey, I don't know anything about this, but I know you're in your job search. Check these things out, right? And again, they're appreciative of it, and maybe they'll come back to me and saying, hey Joe, it worked, or this is not really good, or they saw this. And that's part of that two-way street that I'm hoping for in the future. It's just one way to keep networking with folks, and again, starting small internally, and then you're able to expand it into different pieces.
Well, I would just say, I know what I'm going to do after I leave this episode is really think about who haven't I talked to in a while. And, I think we all need to do that, right? That's an easy takeaway from today, to say, who in my network do I respect, admire, that I just haven't talked to in a while? Maybe I can drop them a quick note and say, let's have a chat, and, nurture the relationships I already have. And then for me, the next one's going to be, um, you know, how do I challenge myself? Because I'm a person who feels pretty comfortable with her network and I like networking, but I think I really need to sit back and think about what new dimensions are there to my network, and what new tools should I go out and buy that I haven't even thought about yet. Right. So I'm gonna go Amazon shopping for network ideas, I guess, after this episode.
There we go. There's a new idea that we're going to have to trademark on an Amazon for networking, a toolbox. But the other thing I was just thinking is really an easy in for folks that are just getting started. What about, and maybe hopefully they like the person, their old person that they reported to, right? It's another person. They're probably at another company. Hopefully, if you had a good rapport with them, that's an easy way to get in and start networking with someone else that's add another scope and world of things that's going on. Just easy tips and tricks to be able to start the ball rolling to get things going. And there could be many different stories of where those go, and I've got a couple in a sense of, really, it came into one. I was trying to do a presentation and I was like looking for different ideas, right? And you start brainstorming and doing this. And then I went out to my network and said, hey guys and gals, what do you think? Right? And then they came back and they're like, Joe, I never thought of some of those things. And they're like, have you thought of this? So we actually, by me asking for their help, they've given me things and I've given them, just by some LinkedIn messages.
Right.
And then a couple of them I
Right.
did talk to. But I also went big on that one because I went to somebody in India, somebody in Europe, somebody in Mexico, because they have different perspectives as well. And that was a big project in a different, it was a sourcing world of things, but I needed some creative different solutions. But that's having a vast network. And maybe people will think it's easy. You're a recruiter, you do this all the time and you have all these people, but no, you have to work at it, right? Because I need those people to respond. And for them to respond is to have that rapport and that
Right.
professional connection with them to be able to come back to it. And you need that in a timely way. So it's having that mutual respect. And that's just an example. And you guys might think that is an easy one, but it was super important to me. It gave them some information that they didn't even think of that they can use for the future. And it solved my problem at the point and, gave me some ideas. And that's just one way to use your network, not always about jobs, right? And looking for a job is a great way to network. And of course, and everyone, and might be a hot topic now being in this climate and market, but, and that's where you have to keep, giving that give and tail back. And it's not, again, like, it's not always about looking for a job.
Right. Right. No, I think those are all really well stated points. And I think we could probably talk about this topic for well in excess of an hour. And, we'd love to hear from our listeners. If there's topics they'd like us to deep dive on that we touched on today, please give us that feedback and we'd be happy to put some thought into it. But Joe, I think, you and I easily are people who have grown and find a lot of value in networking, and, want to be catalyst to other people doing the same. Right. I think that's a fair
Absolutely.
summary, at least how I feel about it, and I think you really won't know until you invest and try. Like Joe said earlier, put together a plan, have a strategy, and really those small acts can really add up and give you a toolbox you never really dreamed of having. So.
And there's tons of resources out there, folks. So if you have some of those ideas or links, put them in the comments, use AI, but start small, keep it going. And you won't go wrong in that, right? In having a bigger network and where you go and always adding to it, because that's what I consistently do. And so does Jill. So, I think we could go forever. So we'll probably frame it up here. I'm going to keep with the toolbox piece of keep shining the tools, keep cleaning them, keep refreshing them, keep adding new tools. But you have your trusty folks that are really connected into that are really your go-to pieces, and utilize that and keep broadening it. And you can't go wrong, like I just said. So really appreciate it, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed the networking chat. And if there's other ideas and concepts, please put them in the comments. And I appreciate it. I'm Joe, and this is our Jill, and thanks for listening.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.